Hey, ladies and gentlemen, this is Nick LaRue from FilmSnobbery. I am here today with Mr. Grant Faulkner, the executive director of NaNoWriMo, and he's here today to tell us a little bit about what that is and how it can benefit you. And also, this is kind of an interesting situation for us because we rarely have people on who are not directly involved in the film world or are not, specifically filmmakers or people in the peripheral. But screenwriting, especially considering we're coming up on November, is this screenwriting, novel writing in general it's a big focus, and I figure let's go to the master himself. No pressure,
Fantastic.
let's go to the master himself and see if we can maybe learn a little bit and love a little bit and go from there. So, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Grant Faulkner, how you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for that nice intro. And it's all storytelling in the end. It doesn't matter if it's a script or a novel. It's all we're constructing a story, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, tell us a little bit about your journey to NaNoWriMo and kind of what the executive director does there.
Okay, I'm going to start with the really boring stuff then. Yeah, I found NaNoWriMo kind of accidentally, to tell you the truth. I mean, as a writer, I found it two different ways: as a writer and as a professional, as part of my career. But as a writer, I don't know how old I was, but I had written a long time, and I woke up one day and basically said, "Did I find my creative process, or did it decide on me? Like how intentional was I about it?" And I was generally a kind of precious, ponderous writer who would work on a first chapter and just revise it and revise it and revise it before moving on. Um, and so what ended up happening is that by the time I finished a rough draft and started revising it, inevitably that first chapter would get cut. So all that time I spent perfecting it was really for nothing. And so I decided to like try NaNoWriMo because it's all about progress, all about moving forward, and
Absolutely.
not like hanging around trying to make everything perfect before you move on. And so I found it was like just very liberating as a creative process because I took more creative risks. I focused on forward movement, and I considered that first draft more of a discovery draft. And so I discovered the story, and that allowed me it was almost like a planning draft in some way. And then I could go back and revise and kind of perfect that first chapter and everything else then. And I oftentimes refer to Joyce Carol Oates' quote. She said, "You don't know the first sentence of a novel until you've written the last sentence." And I think that that's really true. That's when you know the story, you know the arc of the story, or you're deep enough in it that you can really confidently write about that. But career-wise, I found it in similar fashion. About a year after that, I'd been working for the National Writing Project, which is focused on helping teachers teach writing better. And I'd been there about 6 or 7 years, and I wanted to deepen my nonprofit management and leadership experience. And Chris Beatty, the founder of NaNoWriMo, was an acquaintance of mine. And I literally, on a day that I was frustrated with work, emailed him and said, "Do you know of any openings on boards in the East Bay here in the Bay Area for arts organizations?" And he said, "Oh, why don't we have lunch and talk about NaNoWriMo," which I really was not fishing for at all. But we had lunch, we kept talking, he invited me on the board. And then when I joined the board, when he took me out to lunch to tell me that I was on the board, he said, "By the way, I'm stepping down and you should apply for the job," something that I really had not planned for at all. But Chris is a convincing, persuasive guy. So that was about 10 years ago. So I've been executive director for 10 years, and it's been the best job of my life, and I've learned more than I can even know.
Have you seen? Obviously, you've seen NaNoWriMo grow as during your tenure in 10 years. What are some of the ways that it has kind of grown, especially considering that in 10 years you're looking at some of the nascent days of social media? I mean, Twitter's been
Yeah,
around since what, 2000, somewhere between 2006 2008,
it's funny. It's
and
been a long time
it's
now.
been a long time now. It's part of the collective consciousness of the world now. And
Yeah,
but we also had at the time probably MySpace. Facebook was just kind of coming out of colleges and all that and becoming more public.
Friendster, Live Journal.
Exactly. My
Yeah,
friend,
that's
my friend Jeff is a huge live journaler. Like that was his thing for years, and I still even have I did some live journal for a while. I still have a little bit of like a a thing in my heart for it, because it was simple. It was just a thing, you know, and it worked. And I will tell you, like, finding stuff that works is so tough. And that's also another reason why I love NaNoWriMo, is because of what it is. It just, you sign in, you create your, what, you know, your personal profile, but then you create your project profile,
Yep.
and then you're off to the races. All you have to do at that point is just update it, and everything else is kind of revolves around that. Where I'm going with that, there was a question in there somewhere, and that question is how has it evolved in the last 10 years since you kind of taken over and grown?
Yeah, I think in a lot of different ways, but I think one of the main ways is that we um, were National Novel Writing Month. Like that was who we were largely, that one big month of writing in November. And now we have year-round programming. We've redesigned our website, so you can. I call it Fitbit for writers.
Yeah.
You can enter in like your writing project goal and a deadline for any time period during the year. So if you want to write 80,000 words in 2023, show up on January 1st and start your project, and then enter your word count so you can track your progress throughout the year. One of our keys to our program is that a goal and a deadline is a creative midwife. So we really believe on having that pressure of having that goal and also breaking big projects up into smaller chunks. But as we've grown over the years, we have so many. I mean, some of our writers, they've been with us since 2002. They have more than 20 novels they've written with us.
That's crazy.
And so and so they're in various stages of revision and starting novels, and we have new participants, and so we want to meet writers where they are. So I find that more and more writers are using National Novel Writing Month to revise their novels, or to like put the final touches, like the final 25,000 words on their novels. And we have like different programs throughout the year. So we have this event called Camp NaNoWriMo. That's a more casual version of NaNoWriMo that happens in April and July. We have a whole revision and publishing program called I Wrote a Novel, Now What? That happens in January and February. We used to actually, when I started, one thing that's changed, we had a program for scriptwriters called Script Frenzy, and the challenge was to write 100 pages of a script in a month, and it was successful on a certain level. Like at its peak, we had about 25,000 people sign up, but we weren't able to really. It wasn't the thing that we were putting a lot of energy into it without much return. So we decided to focus on like novel writing and fiction.
Well, if there's any, I have so many other questions about that, because that's just kind of our bread and butter. But I want to, I may have to speak with you offline about it maybe at some point. But you know, one thing I really appreciate about NaNoWriMo is kind of the gamification of writing as well. I'm a person who I love to be fed a little, let's call it an attaboy every so often. Like, I'm a gamer, so I also I love my achievement unlocked type of situation.
Right.
And you guys have that badge, the badge system that I've always appreciated as just, it's just such a little something, but for me it makes a big difference, to because it also makes me feel noticed. Even though I know it's just the automated kind of program doing it, it makes me feel noticed for the thing that I'm doing, which I think a lot of writers struggle with and do. And that's another reason why I got involved. NaNoWriMo, we were talking a little bit about this before we got on camera, but NaNoWriMo is what kind of got me into looking into more seriously writers groups and writer sprints and all that. And because one thing leads to another, obviously, you start getting in touch with other writers, you see what they're doing, and then you want to say, well, how can I be involved? I found a wonderful writers group on Facebook, joined them, and we met 4 times a week at least for various things, and that was wonderful. Met some really great people. Turned out one of them lived like 2 towns away from me, so that was wonderful. I know I'm basically just right now just going off on how much I love NaNoWriMo. How has it affected your life as a writer? Because before this, and maybe possibly during it, you also have written books and published it, and I'm sure you saw some of the challenges that you went through as both a writer and someone trying to be published. Was NaNoWriMo a tool that you felt like, I wish I had this when I was writing?
Absolutely. I just want to go back a little bit to what you're talking about with gamification and that
Sure.
reward system. And I mentioned it because uh, for years we joked about how, like we have very compulsive word count updaters on our site. And like literally they'll come back every minute or 5 minutes to like update their word count so they can see that bar chart go up just a
Mm-hmm.
little bit, see their progress. And they've actually done psychological studies on this, that implicit reward is it like people work for that little bit of reward. It's like really significant to them. Like that is more rewarding, for instance, than if you buy yourself something special to reward yourself. And so it's interesting as a writer just to think about like you're saying, where do you get that stimulation of feeling rewarded and feeling
Yeah.
recognized? And it can be just like an online graph moving to see your progress. That's a tremendous reward. So for me, in writing in NaNoWriMo, like I started out as a writer as a kid, and I wrote, throughout high school, but I never dreamed of writing a novel. And we have this young writers program with 100,000 kids and teens who write every year. And I'll talk to like somebody who's 16 or 17 years old, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, I've written 5, 6 novels." Sometimes they've published them. I recently talked to a college student who got a 2-book deal at HarperCollins. She was worried that she was a failure as a writer when she was 17 because she couldn't get published.
Wow.
So
That's
anyway, this is all to say that NaNoWriMo, that just wasn't available to me. I never thought about writing a novel.
yeah.
And so like like that's part of our gift to the world, is to not only empower young people, but to empower a lot of people who don't think of themselves as novelists. Like, so that's it. We always think you can do more than you think you can. And so a lot of people have novel ideas, but a lot of people before us especially did not write them.
I do love the term in reference to writing, the idea of a novel idea, an idea that
Yeah,
belongs in a novel.
exactly. There you go. There you go.
I agree. I mean, we didn't have, we're men of a certain age. I
I
didn't
like that.
have,
We're men of a certain age.
yes.
I like the vagueness of that, and I don't know. It sounds notable.
It does. It
And
sounds
you gotta
both
tie in
lofty,
something.
but at the
You
same
gotta tie in
time,
something.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to use that.
We're men of a certain age, and we grew up at a time where it was pen and paper, or
Yeah.
maybe like there was a word processor or a typewriter. And then I think when I was in school, the first time we were introduced to computers as a method, as for more than just a novelty type of thing, was probably late middle school, maybe high school, really. And I mean, I had a story that I've told other people that I started writing very seriously in high school, and I completed 5 novels when I was in high school, and they were all on a 3.25 inch or 3.5 inch floppy disk
All right.
that they would not let you take out of the computer class. So every day after the end of the computer class, you take your disc, you put it back in the little disc tray, and you left. And so at one point I said to the computer, the teacher lady, which was really just a lady who was from another class that covered this class. Like, she
Right.
was not a computer person. Nothing against her. That's just, no one at the school was. It was we got these donations of these, Apple IIes or maybe whatever the next level of Mac was, probably had been the Lisa or something like that. And we just need you to make sure that the kids don't take a baseball bat to them. I mean, it was basically a babysitter for animals, which, fine, we were high schoolers. That's absolutely what we were. But I said, look, I have 5 books that I've written on this, and we're talking, in about the 40 to 50,000 word range.
You got to steal that floppy disk, man. Get it out of there. I'm worried about it right now.
Right, and then she said, well, you can't take it home. I said, I just want to copy it. She says, well, you can't take it home. I said, can I bring a disc in to copy it here? She goes, we can't allow external discs or whatever in. It's just it's the policy. I said, okay.
Oh my God.
I left, came back the next day. Initialization error on the disc, wouldn't write, or wouldn't read it, and I lost 5 books. And I didn't write again anything that was creative. I mean, I'm writing essays and stuff like that, fine, like that was for school, for grades, whatever. I did not write anything creative again until I was in my mid-20s, maybe mid to late 20s. And then during the pandemic, now here's a question I have for you. During the pandemic, not that we're completely out of the woods yet, but Did you guys see a sharp uptake in traffic from people who were at home and just had nothing better to do but needed that creative outlet and came to you folks for that both the creative outlet interaction, the output, like I need something to track what I'm doing, and I am here and I finally have the time. It's like that Twilight Zone episode where the guy, there was time now. um, did you find that there was a sharp uptake in users, using the NaNoWriMo website during the pandemic?
Yeah, we did. Early on, I think when everybody was like posting photos of their sourdough bread, I think
Right
people
around
had
that
the
time.
pandemic shift of behavior. A lot of people I think were thinking, I'm home, my life has changed, what can I accomplish? I think as the pandemic went along, things flattened out, and I think especially as people were home longer and really dealing with the stress of the pandemic and dealing with things like depression, anxiety, yeah, we saw things flatten off a little bit, and I think definitely people faced some tough times writing. I think anxiety and depression, that type that we experienced during the pandemic and all the other things that happened in our society then are still happening, can really wear one down.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people also weren't getting the nourishment of a lot of social activities that they normally had. So I think it's a lot of different stories there when you're talking about the pandemic and creativity.
Yeah.
But I do think that one good part about it is that people, I mean, in NaNoWriMo we always say that part of what we do is that so many people say I want to write a novel someday, and usually when you say that about something, it never happens.
Right.
And so don't say you're going to write a novel someday, make it happen today. And that's why I set a goal and a deadline as a creative midwife. Make it a priority. And so many people also, like, especially as they become adults, there's this great Picasso quote where he says, every child's born an artist. The challenge is how to remain an artist as you become an adult. And so many people, as they become adults, creativity falls lower and lower and lower and lower on the to-do list until it's not even there, right?
Yeah.
And NaNoWriMo, part of its principle is like make it a priority, for 1 month of the year. Make your creativity, yourself, a priority. And then, it doesn't have to be number one on your list every other month, but keep it on the list, keep writing, keep being creative. That's what it's all about. And so that's what I think one of the primary lessons of NaNoWriMo is just because you're an adult, just because you're busy, everybody's busy.
Everybody's busy.
That's the number one thing I hear from writers when I talk to them about NaNoWriMo, at least adult writers. They say, I'm too busy to do it. And yeah, we're all too busy, but we also have areas in our life, like if something's a priority, we'll make it happen.
Yeah.
And so that's really it. Don't let time happen to you. Make time work for you. And so that's what NaNoWriMo is all about.
I think a lot of it comes down to managing expectations. I think some people think that I can't be a writer or I can't write a novel because I don't have the time, but they don't understand that the time commitment of those things is only 500 words a day, 1,000 words a day. It's a matter of what your expectation built up in your mind. Or I'll never make it as a writer. Well, making it as a writer these days is a very ambiguous term, because making it do you just want to sell? Is your goal to sell one book? Is your goal to sell just to be published on Amazon, self-published? Is it to be published traditionally, to be queried or repped, to do the query and rep thing, to just even get someone wants a full submission, or something like that. I mean, there's a lot of things there. It's just like, well, what do you want to do, with this? And I absolutely subscribe to what you're saying, as far as like everyone is busy. Everyone has to live their life. Everyone has work. Everyone has potentially kids or family commitments, things that people.
Here's a story for you.
Yeah.
So I like to tell this story because it goes in with what you're saying about setting expectations or resetting them. So Toni Morrison, when she wrote her first novel, she was a single mom. She had a couple kids. She was working in New York City. Tough job, stressful job. Came home, fed them, helped them with their homework, got them to bed. She had about 15 minutes in the day left to her. They were not the most creatively stimulating, energizing moments of the day for her. In fact, they were her worst. She used those 15 minutes, though, to write her first novel. So, like you said, might have only been 200 words, 300 words. but this is how you write a novel. A big thing is built in small increments. And so by doing it 15 minutes a day, you can accomplish something really significant. And that's like NaNoWriMo too. I mean, we're doing something bigger than that, but we break up a 50,000 word novel and you write 1,677 words a day. So that's a lot. It's stretch, but it's achievable. And then hopefully, like, if you only write 300 words a day for a month, that's 9,000 words a month. That's, what is that, 108,000 words a year. That's a really big first draft, maybe even 2 novels in there. So again, reset your expectations, make time for your writing, you can do it.
I think also, with technology where it's at, people might not realize, well, I don't have time to write 1,000 words or 1,500 words a day or something. And I'm like, how many words did you text today? How many words were in the cumulative amount of posts that you have on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, etc. today? I'm like, chances are you've written that many words. They just weren't in a story form, so you can do it, and it's just a matter of again, realigning where your priority might be for that.
How long does it take you to write 1 page of a script, roughly?
I would say roughly, how many words to a page is it?
I don't even know.
Yeah. I'm about, if I do a 15-20 minute like writer sprint or something like that, I can usually bang out about 450 words.
Okay, so using the Toni Morrison method of you could write 1 page a day in 15 or 20 minutes. So you could write a whole script, a 2-hour movie in about 120 days, about 4 months. Yeah.
And I figured out a new way to cheat, because I'm getting older, and as I've gotten older, I've realized I don't want to waste time. So I figured out a way to cheat a little bit, and I'm going to give this tip out to you, but I'm also going to give it out to the viewers, which are, if I am uncertain of whether or not I want to write a novel or write a script, but I have an idea for a story, I will invariably choose to write a script first, because the script will, at least if I decide to turn it into a novel afterwards, I already have all my locations and all of my dialogue.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I've heard it both ways, right? I've heard somebody write a novel and then adapt it into a script. And I mean, it's a great way to explore your story, I think, either way.
Yeah. Are you? Would you consider yourself a pantser, or would you consider yourself more someone who has to plot it out?
Yeah, and just for viewers' sake, pantser means right by the seat of your pants without a plan or a plot. And I think when I first started writing, I was very much a pantser. But the longer I write, I will never be a 100% diehard planner. Like I hear people, I think James Patterson has a 20-page single-spaced outline that he writes every novel with. I like, again, like I said earlier, to write more with a sense of discovery, to discover the story. I like to pursue its mysteries and to write with questions in mind. But I try to find that happy balance between planning and pantsing. So I really need a certain kind of directional energy for the story. I need to kind of know its trajectory or where it's going, but again, I don't have anything truly defined. So I'll usually spend the month of October kind of just daydreaming about my novel, writing some notes here and there, and then I'll kind of come up with a loose sketch or a loose kind of spine for the novel. But I don't really, I have written with a strict plan, a rigid plan, and I find that I feel like I've written it before I write. And so the excitement of writing is kind of taken away. But I've talked to people, outliners, and I think, it can be the opposite for them. They can use that outline and they can still feel that sense of mystery, and they know they can break the rules. I think that's really important. If you're a planner, allow yourself to break that plan as you're writing, because again, I think especially in those early drafts, the discovery part is really important.
We had a filmmaker on a couple of days ago named Dan Mervish, who was one of the co-founders of Slam Dance, and he's also a writer himself. He's written a couple of nonfiction books on filmmaking and film marketing. And one of the topics that came up during that conversation was you have to know you have to know the rules before you can break them. And I find that especially with as they call it, screenwriting Twitter, or any discussion about writing that gets into it with a group of people, invariably there are people that say, well, they say you can't say this, or you can't do this, or you can't do that, and then thankfully someone, usually towards the end of the thread, has the thing of saying, you can do whatever you want. Like, just, understand who your audience is. Write something that is authentic to yourself, and you will find that audience that way. And just because you write something a certain way, or in a certain format that is not generally accepted, does not necessarily mean that someone won't accept it. That's what editors are for. If there's a real problem with it, someone will say, hey, maybe consider XYZ. Do you have a preference for writing? So you've done both, I'm assuming, writing fiction and nonfiction. Because I know you've also written a couple books on writing.
Yeah. Going back to that, it's often said, a lot of people say you've got to know the rules before you break them. I'm not even sure if I agree with that. I think it's good. I mean, I like reading how to write books. I like reading craft books. I like thinking about how a story is constructed and how I like to construct a story. But I also just believe in one's impetus to tell a story. We are storytelling creatures. That's how we're wired as human beings. That's the definition of being a human being. And so I think like it depends on what your expectations or your desires are for your writing. If you're trying to sell a very kind of rigidly genre novel, like a lot of genre novels have certain expectations in the genre. So if you really want to sell in that genre, that's your goal, then it's good to be aware of those rules.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I think like storytelling, I just think a lot of those rules, they I don't know. I mean, I just don't. I think you to be in service to your story is the main thing, and tell your story the way you want it to be. So it just depends on what you want. And let me see. Your question though was about like my desire to write fiction or versus nonfiction.
Yeah, like which comes easier to you?
Well, I joke that I've written everything except the vacuum cleaner manual, and with that joke, someday I'm going to write a vacuum cleaner manual, but it's going to be like a metafictional, weird vacuum cleaner manual novel of some sort.
The Douglas Adams version of a vacuum cleaner manual.
Yeah, or inside John Malkovich's head, except it's a vacuum cleaner. I don't know. I don't know. But anyway, I find them each nourishing in different ways, and so I really love actually like. When I was earlier in my writing career, I could focus on one thing. Like I could write a novel, and that would be the thing I would be working on for 1, 2, 3, 4 years. But now I kind of love this kind of writing with a constant like distraction, essentially, because I'll be working on fiction for 2 or 3 weeks, and then I'll get a nonfiction article assignment, and I'll be doing that for 2 or 3 weeks, and then I can go back to my fiction, and it'll be fresh and new because I haven't thought about it in 3 weeks. And so I juggle a lot of things. And right now I've spent most of this year finishing a nonfiction book. And that was a great project and I loved it, but I'm itching to write fiction. Like the little snatches of time I've had to write fiction, I've been like, wow, this is so nourishing. This is so beautiful. All I want to do is sit in this corner of the room and write tiny little flash fiction pieces that almost no one in the world will ever really want to read.
But I love writing flash fiction. I really do. I know that you are a part of the it's the 100-word story.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. And that I love flash fiction because it allows me. Ideas are something I personally never have a problem having. I'm always I will constantly I'll think up something in my head. I'll chuckle to myself. My wife will go, you just had an idea, didn't you? I said, yeah, just let me get it. I put it down in my notes app just so I can kind of file it away till I have time. But I will go through those things and think of, oh, this is, what it is. And then I never know how long it's going to be, but, invariably it's like, before I know it, 1,500 words, 2,500 words, something like that. And I'll just throw it up on, at the moment I have a lot of my flash fiction up on Kindle Vella. And I don't know what your opinion is on that, but I think that if it was advertised better and marketed a little bit better, I think it could be good. I've made money off of it. I've seen some people that have issues with the format, have issues with, the fact that it's Amazon. I get it. I get it. People have preferences for different things. I don't think there's any one right platform or one right thing for everybody. I think that it really depends on what your expectations are, things we've talked about earlier. But I put myself up on Kindle Vella and I've found some level of success with it, but also I know that it's at least available to people. For a while, I thought of hoarding my work because I was like, well, I can't put it out there because then I can't submit it to a contest, or I can't submit it to this, or I can't do this. And I'm like, and I tried that play that game for a little while of like, I'm going to submit to this thing that's so specific that I'm like, you're obviously looking for this specific story, like that, like someone will submit to you and write, but like it's so specific to win or to get the recognition or whatever the prize for getting it is, publishing, whatever. It's like you almost might as well have just written out a, hey, we have an assignment for this, and write this specific thing. And that frustrated me because it felt like it took the creativity of it out of my hands. And I know I'm saying a lot of things in this interview about myself, but I kind of, as a newer writer, or a writer that was relatively new just within the past couple of years of pitching and querying and contests and all of this, the one bright spot in all of that was NaNoWriMo, because they didn't expect anything from me, and allowed me to create without saying, well, you can't do it this way, you can't do it that way. All it wanted from me was, hey, how many words did you write today? And then good job. And I appreciated that, and so I mean, and I'm a professional film critic. I've been doing this for a long time, and so writing about movies, writing about writing my own stuff and all that is no, I'm not necessarily looking to get, published on anything or whatever, but because I've managed my expectations. But the idea of like, every time I felt like I went to attempt it, it was just this litany of no. And, I work in the film industry. I know from no. But, I don't know. It was just it's a weird kind of industry to be in. Writing. And I guess where I'm going with this is that, I know there was a question in there somewhere. I will get around to it. How often do you reach out to the writing community and say, what are some of the challenges that you have, and what can NaNoWriMo do to be a beacon of solution for you?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what the event is. I mean, writing 50,000 words in a month is very, very tough. Mm-hmm. And it goes everything from that beginning stage of perhaps giving yourself permission to even think about writing a novel and permission to do it, to like writing it and joining a writing community. And then some people, they want to write and publish, so there's all those steps of revision and all those steps of putting your work in the world. I mean, as an artist, you're always kind of reckoning with, I mean, I think when I was talking about craft books earlier, I love craft books and how to write books, but I really think it's about the strength of your creative mindset and building that strength so that you can go through all those stages. And so that's what I think NaNoWriMo is, in large part about. It's about, we don't tell people how to write a novel. We have a lot of conversations about it. We provide a lot of resources, but we're really trying to help them get over whatever obstacle it is. And when we talk about writing obstacles, one of the exercises we do with our Young Writers program is we have the students draw a picture of their inner critic. And so they'll usually draw a monster or something. There's this one boy, he sent me his inner critic, and it had 50 legs and 8 arms, and it was throwing things at him from different directions. And then they wad it up and they put it in the basket so that they can write with abandon during NaNoWriMo. And so that's kind of the principle, is to be able to kind of wad your inner critic up, or whatever those obstacles are, if they're naysayers in your life, self-doubt, imposter syndrome, all these things that kind of attack you. Wad them up, throw them in the trash can, and then write. Write with that purity of write like nobody's going to read you, dance like nobody's watching you dance. That's the premise, yeah.
Have you ever had anyone in your life who has been that person that has said, writing, you're a really good writer, and so what are you going to do for money? What are you going to do for a real job?
Sure. Yeah? Sure, yeah.
And I ask that not to put that on you. It's more of just I think there's a lot of people out there that have that voice in the back of their head that is an actual person that they care about and that cares about them, that just wants them to be safe financially.
Right.
That, it's coming from a good place, but at the same time, it's oh, thank you. You've had that in the past, and look where you're at.
Oh, I think any writer who's set out to be a writer, and especially a kind of a full-time writer, has heard that from many people. And like you say, oftentimes from a very good place. But I find it very unhelpful because most writers already know that. You know, we
Yeah.
know how hard it's going to be. And most of us are so passionate about it that we're willing to take that risk. And that's what I was. You know, I waited tables for years. I worked in bookstores. Did anything I could to piece together a writing living. And, one thing led to the next. And, I'm very fortunate to have my professional life be so closely tied to my writing life. But, it's a question even now. I'm not earning big bucks. I'm working for a nonprofit. And the world keeps getting more and more expensive. So
It's true.
but like that's why I think like writing your story, like your story is a gift to yourself and it can be a gift to the world. And I don't really think too much about sales or whether you're a best-selling author or whether you're on Oprah or The View or whatever it is, pushing your book. It's really about the sacred act of writing your story and the satisfaction and the nourishment that you get from that. And that's what we try to do with NaNoWriMo. It's really about that gift of your story, and I do believe it's a gift.
Now, I noticed that as I was looking at NaNoWriMo's website earlier today, you partner with a lot of different people, which is another reason why also when I brought up like Amazon, I know that you guys work with Amazon KDP a little bit, and I've published something through there as well, plus my Kindle Vella, and I enjoy the process in as much as it's very easy. So I'm not going to slag them off at all, but what I will say is that you guys work with a lot of people, and you offer so many things to writers, new and emerging writers that join NaNoWriMo or that participate year round in certain things. What are some of the current things that NaNoWriMo might be offering to kind of help filmmakers? See, I'm doing this.
Too.
Writers.
Writers. We're all storytellers.
Writers, maybe screenwriters, because I noticed that one of them is you guys have a 20% off discount for Scrivener. Yeah. And with Scrivener, if you're not a fan of like writing with Final Draft or Celtics or something like that, you can write scripts with Scrivener. And so if you were looking to do something like that, there's a 20% off for them right now. And I think 50% if you actually complete NaNoWriMo.
Right. 50,000 words, you get 50% off the Scrivener.
Yeah.
And so we are a nonprofit. Most of our funding comes from the $25 donations, the small dollar donations of people who participate and have a good experience. But we do also have sponsors, and those sponsors, they have a whole slew of different offers and discounts, and we have that all. I think if you go to our website and go to our, I don't have it up here, but go to our writing resources section, writers resources, it's the last link there called offers. And actually anybody can qualify for those offers. You don't even have to sign up for NaNoWriMo, but we prefer if you do. You do have to sign up though to get the winter offers, which are the deeper discounts and the deeper services. So yeah, we work. What's been amazing when you said what's changed in 10 years is we're living in this golden age of tools for writers. There are constantly new tools out there. Every year I'm amazed by how many new companies are out there developing new tools, and they're getting snazzier and snazzier. And a lot of them, like Scrivener, Scrivener's history, it was developed by a coder programmer in NaNoWriMo, like way back in like 2005 or something. And he was so frustrated with, I think it was Word or whatever the existing like writing software he was using, that he's like, I'm going to develop my own. And there's been a bunch of like writing tools that have been developed out of NaNoWriMo itself. And so like our writing tools just keep getting better and better. And a lot of those companies sponsor us, very fortunately.
Yeah, no, I actually went over to the it's nanowrimo.org/offers, I think is your URL for that. You guys do have that. A bunch of them that I personally use. I do use Scrivener. I also use Pro Writing Aid. I love Pro Writing Aid. I tried another. I won't say it because I don't want to again slag them off. They were good. They just weren't as good as Pro Writing Aid. I was using something else before, and I really was impressed by the difference in that, and especially because Pro Writing Aid works not just in like Word or whatever. Like Pro Writing Aid sits on my computer and will correct me everywhere now, and and to the point where I almost sometimes get a little offended. I'm like, no, that's what I meant to say. which actually, all right, so I got a couple different questions. One of them I'm gonna relate to NaNoWriMo, which is how it's a nonprofit, which means that it does, like you said, it relies on people who donate. It relies on people to volunteer or become involved. I've donated. I like I
Well,
said,
thank you.
it did not. Thank you. You're welcome. It was not a hard sell for me because I see value, and I think that that's important with any business, but especially with a nonprofit. I mean, I think the people not only have to see value in their heart, but see value in their how this will help their career. And I did, so that was easy. Now, my question, I guess, is how can other people become involved with NaNoWriMo if they want to? Are there volunteer opportunities, or how does it work?
Yeah, absolutely. We have. I think one of the magical things about NaNoWriMo is that I think, and you brought this up earlier, like we came of age as the internet came of age, and that's really been a huge fuel for our growth. So we're not just National Novel Writing Month; we're actually International Novel Writing Month. We're in about 200 countries every year. We've been on 7 continents, including Antarctica, and we also have this army of dedicated, passionate, wonderful people who host in-person writing events in their local communities. So they are again global, and what they do is they're not, they used to, a lot of them just used to do it in October and November for NaNoWriMo, but increasingly they do it all year round. So they're developing writing communities and writing groups, and so they'll set up in the location. We're actually doing a special deal with Barnes and Noble this year, where Barnes and Noble's giving discounts on things, and our municipal liaisons, as we call them, they're volunteers. They host these writing events, and they're to describe our municipal liaisons, that's the word for the volunteers. They're writing coaches, they're therapists, they're event organizers, they're whip crackers. They're many things at once. So you can go to one of these writing events, you can have fun with their writing activities and their writing games. Some of them are just like you sit silently and write together. So they come in all flavors, but it's a great way to meet other writers and to have that in-person connection. And I can't speak to the value of writing communities enough. Too many writers, I think we think of ourselves always alone writing, and we forget that there's this wider world of writers who we really need for that kind of conversation that you can only get from another writer.
I agree, and it's weird coming from the film world where you talk about film and everyone says, "Oh, it's this huge collaborative medium that requires all these different people with all these different skill sets and knowledge to create something," and then you talk about writers and how it's that for like novelists, writers, authors, flash fiction, whatever, and the image that's projected is someone sitting alone,
Yeah,
probably by candlelight of some sort, with a quill and
yeah.
an ink,
What's the name
doing
of that
that.
Coen Brothers movie?
Yes. And so it's a really interesting juxtaposition. But I found that when I do write with other people, I find that the accountability is there,
Yep.
because even if I'm not competing with these people, which I'm not, I kind of am. I want to, at the end of that 25, 30 minutes or an hour or however long we meet for, I want to be able to go like, so how many words you get out, and it's like, they're like, I got out like 1,000 words. I'm like, I got 1,500, you know, whatever it is.
Even the accountability that they expect you to be there.
Yes.
Like when NaNoWriMo started, Chris Beatty, he didn't start it alone. He woke up and he wanted to write a novel, and he decided you could write 50,000 words in 30 days, but he invited 20 of his friends to join him.
Yep.
So those 20 friends met in cafes after work. And if you didn't show up for 2 or 3 days, you'd get a phone call.
Yep.
Are you still writing your novel? And so that public accountability, the best way to be accountable to anything, to any behavior change in your life, is to tell the world. So if you're going to quit smoking, the best way to do that is to tell the world, tell some friends or family that you're quitting.
Yeah, it's the only acceptable form of codependency.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I love it, and I love that it isn't what I thought it was. Again, there's this kind of disparity between the film world and the writing world, but I see so many ways that each could make each other better, which I think is interesting. I find that authors, by and large, that especially self-published people, and even more specifically, either those in the in genre fiction, so specifically romance and horror, really, are so good at promoting themselves and marketing. Where if I could just take some of the drive, ambition, and some of the skill set that those folks have and transmit it over to film people, you would never see an empty theater at a film festival again. You know what I mean? It's and the romance writers specifically. My wife is a big romance reader,
Yeah.
and so she's on all the ARC lists, the advanced reader copy lists. She's on all of the whatever, and she's like, these people have email newsletters that go out, and they have thousands, tens of thousands of readers. They have people that I'm like, can I get their books in a bookstore, and they're at a Barnes and Noble or something? They're like, no, like you can download them, or you can buy them on Amazon, or you can buy them on one of the other sites or something like that. And it's like they don't, but these people are like undiscovered gems. And I'm like, well, how many books do they have? Like, oh, this person has like 47 books. They put out like 3 a year, and I'm like, what? Like that's crazy. And I'm like, are they like 50-page books? Like, no, these are like 250, 350-page books. They're just that's all they do. And it's like a cycle to some degree. And I just find it to be amazing because you don't see that same general level of prolificity, whatever, from screenwriters or from other things, and especially getting the sales on top of it, or at the very least, even if it's not sales, getting the awareness out there. There's a disconnect, and I think there's some tools that authors have that that filmmakers don't have. Things like story origin and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, screenwriters, you're writing a script, and and your intent is to make it into a movie, which is a very complicated process of
True.
And so writing a romance novel, and those, I got to say, like if you want to learn about the book promotion and marketing and sales of books, especially on the indie publishing side, talk to a romance novelist, because as you said, they are really so savvy generally, the ones who are successful at it. It's amazing. And I mean, as a writer, if you get to talk about the publishing sphere a little bit, more and more is writers have to do more and more every year. Even if they traditionally publish, those publishing companies do less and less for writers. So you have to learn to be a marketer. You have to learn about promotion. It is very tough because a lot of writers aren't naturally inclined that way.
It's a left brain, right brain kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's, but yeah, there's a lot to learn there. And I think like a lot of those genre writers, they know it's up to them. And so they've just learned how to do it. And I got invited to a romance writers group to talk one time. And I thought, I'm going to give my, creative, inspirational talk to help them overcome their obstacles and write. That was the last thing they needed. They were like you said, they were writing 3-4 books a year.
Yeah.
And they were just so savvy.
I'm guessing it became more of a business class than anything else.
It was. Yeah. They taught me, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really, I find it just to be really interesting as to how, one group can kind of just nail it on a certain level. And I think the other big thing I see difference wise is that authors are very collaborative. I'm not only collaborative on each other's books, like, if you join a writers group and you write something and they say, hey, we want to, does anyone want to read this and do a quick, edit pass over for me or whatever, like, that's fine. You almost never see that for screenwriters. It's a very like, well, no, someone might steal my idea kind of thing. And the industry encourages that to some degree because there are so many people who have been sued or had their work flat out taken. I've had close personal friends that has happened. And so they're very, very close to the chest when it comes to, doing additional, letting additional people in on their drafts and stuff like that. It's really that is the biggest disconnect I find between screenwriting world and novel writing world, is the level of trust in other people,
interesting,
in that collaboration. Yeah. I know that I only said I'd keep you for about an hour. I really enjoyed speaking with you though, and I would, I could keep you forever. But I would like to ask, I guess as a final couple questions. Is there anything in particular? I mean, we've been talking about NaNoWriMo the whole time. That's kind of what you're here to promote, because it starts November 1st, goes to November 30th, and I'm excited to be participating myself. But is there anything else that you would like to promote personally, whether it's your own, books or any speaking engagements that you have coming up, or any other things that you're involved in?
Yeah, well, I do want to remind people, a lot of times people think it's too late to get an idea to write a novel in November, and it's not really. When I speak about NaNoWriMo, I usually do it like a 1-hour presentation, and half of that time is just based on giving people like about 4 or 5 different exercises, and I always guarantee that they will come out with enough material to feel comfortable writing a novel in a month, and I've always heard that back from them. So you don't need to have this elaborate outline. You can jump in and write with not much and still get a very satisfying experience out of that. In terms of things I want people to know is that shorter side of my fiction world that you mentioned earlier, like I am the founder of 100 Word Story, the magazine, and all the stories have to be exactly 100 words. Mm-hmm. And I have a book of 100 word stories and write flash fiction frequently. So I have a book coming out called The Art of Brevity. It's actually just up for pre-sale now. So if you go to Amazon or bookshop.org or wherever, you can order a copy. But it's all about how to craft this very short story, and it's coming out in February 2023. So I'm very excited about that.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank you for coming on the show. I mean, this is fantastic information. I think that even though we didn't talk about screenwriting a lot, I think that people can really take a lot of the lessons that NaNoWriMo offers, and some of the I think also some it can take the structure that it offers and adapt it to writing, not just necessarily during November, but forever.
Well, I'll challenge your viewers, your screenwriters out there, sign up for NaNoWriMo, write a 100-page script in 30 days, just like we used to do for Script Frenzy. Mm-hmm. I think it's actually better for script writers than it is for novel writers. So
yeah, and to help with that, this is open to everyone: novelists, author, regular authors, screenwriters, whatever. We're going to be going ahead and we're going to do every day of November. We are going to be putting on a writer sprint that is going to be live just like this. Right. So if people want to either join in via Zoom, or if they want to just participate via the chat room or something via Twitch, you can go ahead and do that, and we'll have more details. We'll probably release that on Twitter, which is twitter.com/FilmSnobbery. You, sir, are twitter.com/Grant Faulkner, spelled like it is on your lower third. I hope, yes. Did I spell it right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I'm Grant Faulkner everywhere.
He's Grant Faulkner everywhere.
Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Grant Faulkner.
Right behind you.
Yeah. Faulkner. So please follow me. I'd love that.
No, absolutely. And hey,
one thing I do want to plug is I have a weekly newsletter on Substack called Intimations, a Writer's Discourse. And right now I'm doing a special NaNoWriMo series that I've been doing throughout October, and I'll continue writing throughout November. So if you want to keep the NaNoWriMo conversation going, subscribe to my Substack newsletter.
Subscribe to the Substack. Subscribe to all the things. Why not?
All of them.
All of them. I mean, come on.
Yeah. Send me money in the mail. little checks.
Well, I do hope that we get to talk more. I really enjoy your conversations on Twitter with Ms. Bowerman and everything we got there. That's how we kind of connected, was via Twitter there. And I'm excited for what comes next with NaNoWriMo, not only for November but going forward. And if there's any way that I can ever help, I'm happy to. And I'm always happy when I can see a first-time filmmaker or a first-time novelist make a second movie or write a second book. That's always my ethos when I started FilmSnobbery and I was doing all of this. So the fact that you guys help facilitate that on a yearly basis, it makes me feel good. So Thank you very much, and thank you for coming on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nick. It was a great conversation.
Thank you very much. And let's see. And that's it really for our show, FilmSnobbery Live, this week. You guys got a kind of a fun double bonus. of Film Snobbery this week. So once again, I want to remind everyone, check us out over on twitter.com/FilmSnobbery. We're also released a whole bunch of new/old classic, if you will, interviews that we had from film festivals that we've done over the years over at our YouTube page. So if you go to youtube.com and check out, search for Film Snobbery, we're still working on getting that handle there because that site got nuked a while back. So we're rediscovering that now. Follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/filmsnobbery, and instagram.com/film_snobbery, because someone's squatting on the actual Film Snobbery. So we'll see you guys again next week, especially as we start November 1st. Again, we're going to, at the start of NaNoWriMo, we're going to go ahead and we're also going to go and do writer sprints in honor of that to help you guys reach your goals. We'll have more details on Twitter, so keep an eye out there. I guess for the week, that's it. Bye, everyone.